All right, so this next and final video comes to us from Sashko, which is another history of DBD content creator who is also very, very good and does a very, very thorough and good job of informing us of the history of something or another, like that be a perk or a map or something to that extent. So you should definitely support good content creators by clicking that link that just showed up in the Twitch chat, or if you're watching this in the future on YouTube, it'll be down in the description below. Shashko's video today is talking about how totems change Dead by Daylight forever. Forever, not five ever, forever. So go ahead and roll it.
Totems are interactive props that have been present in Dead by Daylight for almost 7 years now. Today they're an essential part of DBD gameplay that pretty much every player is familiar with. But contrary to popular belief, they weren't actually released with the base game on the 14th of June 2016, but instead almost a half year later. Now, with them being this old, it should come as no surprise that they have received quite a bit of changes throughout DBD's history.
The most infamous probably being that totems just kind of spawned out in the open for a very, very long time. Like old Hatfield would just spawn like dead middle of the street, like as like a beacon to the member of like just like the beacon to the middle of the map. Stuff like that. It was just awful. Very, very awful.
Including a multitude of practically game-changing updates. So, in this video we're going to be taking a look at the evolution of totems in Dead by Daylight, and without any further ado, let's get right into it.
Ooh, Silent Hill music. Hey, Silent Hill music, woo!
Let's start with something that is still being talked about in DBD to this very day, gen rushing. This has actually been a topic of discussion ever since the game's very release, and back then, survivors actually had quite a bit more stuff that they could utilize in order to speed up the generator repair process. First of all, the old brand new parts could instantly repair a whole generator the same frame they were used. Furthermore, originally there was no speed or efficiency penalty for survivors working on the same generator.
Which is also
Additionally, good skill checks would award you with plus 1% bonus generator progression, while great skill checks granted a total of plus 2% added progression. Not only that, but the default gen repair speed was actually only 65 seconds. Not to mention that you only needed to complete 4 generators. Okay, that last one was a joke, but you get what I mean. Gen rushing was starting
you just appear on the map and the gen's already on.
And one of the solutions that a lot of players were suggesting back then was for behavior to add a secondary objective for survivors to complete. Well, it turns out that this idea really stuck with the developers, and so, during one of the developers' regular Twitch live streams, Dave Richard, DBD's creative director, teased this image on screen of what would eventually become what are today known as totems. Naturally, the player base was really excited. Finally, survivors were going to receive a secondary objective that would slow down the pace of the game. And so, totems were officially added to Dead by Daylight on the 6th of December 2016 with the release of patch 1.3.0. Now, since these props had just been introduced into the game, there actually weren't...
Why does it look like she's like headbutting it? I know like the thing is like she's supposed to be like, you know, like at the bottom of it, like dismantling it from the bottom, but it looks like she's just going just just headbutting the skull. Animation looks so goofy.
Any hex perks at that time. So, what did totems do back then exactly? Well, not much. They mostly served as an easy way for survivors to earn a couple of blood points, 400 to be exact. Also,
so
originally the totem cleansing action didn't feature a unique animation, instead the developers just reused the sound effects and animation for hook sabotaging. Additionally, the action's progress would not reset back to 0% if the survivor stopped cleansing the totem. And, much like generators, killers could see the auras of all 5 totems on the map at any time.
Interesting.
Things didn't stay like this for long though, as only 2 days after the 1.3.0 patch, Chapter 3 of Flesh and Mud was officially released to the live servers of DBD. This update introduced a new killer to the game, that being the Hag, who brought along the first ever hex.
This was widely regarded as a bad move.
These being Devourer Hope, Ruin, and the Third Seal. Now, I'm not going to get into the differences that all of these perks had back in the day compared to their current iterations, since that's a little off topic. But what I am going to mention is that this update also implemented the first general hex perk in the game, that being Hex Thrill of the Hunt. A couple of days after that, patch 1.3.1b rolled around, which made it so that killers would now only see the auras of hex totems, and so that the progress of the totem cleansing action would reset back to 0% if the survivor didn't complete the whole thing in one go. Now, most of the original totem spawns back in the day were,
That's what I was
let's
talking
say,
about.
not
Terrible.
really the killer's favorite.
Terrible.
Like, just look at that. It's literally just out in the open waiting to get...
This one lasted so long. This one lasted so long. This one right here, I remember this. I remember getting hexstones on this and going, please, why behavior? This lasted so long. People complain about it for so long and they just really didn't care. They, yeah, screw it. Have that totem just spawn out in the middle of a field. No cover, not behind a wall, anything. Just waving to everybody as they go by.
Get cleansed by a survivor. It's no surprise that even though perks like, for example, the original Ruin were without a doubt pretty damn strong, it wasn't uncommon for them to get cleansed in the first minute, sometimes even the first 30 seconds of a match. Totems would receive their first actual changes on the 27th of April 2017, with patch 1.5.0, also known as the update which added Bloodlust and the mechanic for sabotaged hooks and bear traps to respawn. The dual totem cleanse scoring values were increased from 400 to 600, and the ones for hex totems were also increased from 800 to 1000. Furthermore, the total time to cleanse a totem was increased from the previous 10 to the new 14 seconds, and No Wet was also finally changed into being a hex perk, since before that, No One Escapes Death was simply on a 2-minute timer that would start right after an exit gate had been powered. Over the years, totems would receive multiple quality of life changes, the most important one of them being that they became harder and harder to spot, which was a great improvement. The 3D model of the totem would also receive a graphical rework as part of the Realm Beyond Update Part 3 in early December 2020. But something much bigger was on the horizon. Something that would forever change DBD and its meta, Boon Totems.
Yep, there it is. The idea of positive totems have been thrown around for so long. It was in general a good idea because, like, you know, giving survivors a way to interact with the totems is not just like purely negative, right? Which is like, okay, well now I just do it for points, or I just do it to get rid of a bad totem. Like giving survivors a way to like use the totems in a positive way, been a good idea for a long time. But they came out swinging a little too hard, as you're about to find out.
The concept for Boon Totems was introduced with the 5.3.0 patch, also known as the update which implemented the long-awaited nerf to keys, and the chapter which brought Michaela Reed to Dead by Daylight. This new character's perks were all centered around one thing: totems, with 2 of them allowing you to perform a new type of action to totems, Blessing, and in turn, this would activate your selected perk's effect. This relatively simple concept, however, resulted in one of the most hated metas in DBD's entire history. Boy oh boy was Circle of Healing unbalanced. Originally, Boon Circle of Healing allowed you to heal yourself without a medkit at 50%.
That was what like really made it broken. That's what really made it bad. Like the heal up together thing, super fast thing is like really, really crazy. Like that's really good. And how the numbers of it were super high. But like the ability to just go self-care without a medkit whenever you wanted, without even having to bring a perk, it was just somebody else in your team brought a perk. You don't understand how much pressure having to take 2 survivors to do something does. I mean, that's the whole point of like, you know, putting somebody on hook. Obviously, putting somebody on hook, the point is to, you know, advance them towards death and kill them, right? But the main idea, the main thing is that somebody has to get off a gen, run over, and unhook them, right? So that's them getting off a gen, because you can't, unless you're running Deliverance and you've already unhooked somebody, you can't unhook yourself. That's not a thing. Stands, you know, the unhook yourself while somebody's camping thing. But with this situation, you know, obviously one of the things that, you know, requires multiple survivors unless you have a medkit is healing yourself. Now that you just, without bringing a medkit, you can just do it all your own, which means another person doesn't have to be stuck healing you, which means they can be off on a gen somewhere.
Normal speed. But this was directly counteracted by the fact that the perk also provided a 100% speed increase to all healing speeds within the boon's radius, meaning that you could literally heal yourself without a medkit at the normal self-healing speed.
Yeah, it was also affected by other healing perks as well.
Instead of the current 24 seconds. Now, granted, Circle of Healing did get nerfed twice after that, but those nerfs never actually addressed the main issue with this perk, which was that it literally allowed you to heal yourself indefinitely without any of your other teammates having to waste time coming and healing you. This countered so many different playstyles, but the one that by far suffered the most was Hit and Run. All of this made most M1 killers back then feel even worse to play as. Not to mention that, unlike Hex Totems which would get destroyed forever after being cleansed, survivors could bless the same totem over and over again, no matter how many times the killer would snuff it. The developers tried to solve this problem by implementing a new general killer perk called
Shattered Hope, which is now one of the most useless perks in the game. Now that like Boon Circle of Healing is not meta anymore. This is one of the most useless general perks in the game. You should have made this a mechanic, not a... If you were going to keep boons, and as powerful as they were, you should have implemented this as a mechanic, not a perk. And so now this perk is just useless now that you nerfed Boon Circle of Healing. Just stupid, man.
Called Shattered Hope, which would allow you to break totems after snuffing them, preventing survivors from blessing the same totem over and over again. This, in my opinion, should have been a base kit mechanic from the get-go, but I digress. Regardless, Circle of Healing was finally reworked in the 6.7.0 patch, along with the other changes to medkits and healing in general. Now, something I wanted to mention is that even though most players used to say that boons were incredibly overpowered, it was mostly Circle of Healing which they were referring to, as in all honesty, most if not all other boon perks.
Yeah, most of the boon perks were fine. Shadow Step can get pretty annoying sometimes, but Exponential's not really you're getting a lot of value. Neither is like Boon Dark Theory. It was really just Circle of Healing. It wasn't boons as a concept. It was just Circle of Healing just did too much. Like, and they treated it like it was a boon issue and not just like a specific perk issue. It's just silly.
Okay, in my opinion, with some of them not even being that good. Before we wrap it up, I can't not also mention the fact that yet another new mechanic for totems was added with Chapter 22 Portrait of a Murderer, that being the ability to rekindle broken totems when using the perk Hex Pentimento. Fun fact, this perk also works with Shattered Hope, meaning that you can immediately rekindle a broken totem after snuffing it. Also, another fun fact that I found out about while doing research for this video is that if you throw a pebble inside the radius of a totem blessed by Shadow Step, the scratch marks generated by the pebble will also become hidden.
Why would you want that? Isn't the point of Pebble to attract the killer with a noise and scratch marks? Why would it deactivate half of the perk that's already not helpful? Oh, that's... Okay.
Well, yeah, anyways, I think that was it. I hope you really enjoyed the video. If you did, then consider liking it and subscribing. Let me know if I missed anything down in the comments, I would really appreciate it. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!
What would we do to even make totems better? That's my question. Not like better in a sense of like stronger, but like they're mostly just still a side objective that most people don't care about, right? Unless you have like an archive challenge or something to pop them, most people don't care for totems. Like, how do you make that a relevant mechanic? How do you make that something that's like worth doing? Because unless you have a tome challenge, like, how do you integrate totems in a way that's not they just like chill in the background and do absolutely nothing for the most part? Like, unless the killer has a Hex Totem, or somebody's, you know, booning something with just to get their overzealous value, totems still basically aren't really in the field of play. You get Hex Pentimento gamers with Plaything, or like I said, you have overzealous people blessing their totem just get their gen rush value, you know, like, other than that, totems really just kind of chill in the background. You still have situations where, like, you know, like we talked about, like Sashko talked about in the middle of this video, where, like, you know, you spawn in, and your Hex Totem gets sniped within the first 30 seconds, because even with the better totem spawns, it's like, sometimes the survivors still just spawn right on top of them. It's like, how do you integrate these more into the field of play? And I don't know the answer to that. You know, I just work here, I just play the game, you know? I just work here, I just play the game. So I don't know particularly what you would do to integrate them more into the field of play. One totem meets broken iron eggs. I wouldn't want to make it like so much a part of the normal gameplay flow that you literally can't escape without doing it. I don't think that doesn't sound healthy, but I like the kind of like the idea set that the claws on. We're getting somewhere good with that, where if like you can like it unblocks a gen if like a gen was like blocked, but they had to do like a nearby tome to unlock it or something. I don't know. Something like that. Something where like you know, it's something that benefits you to get rid of it, but not something that's like too strong, you know. I don't know. I would hope that we find some sort of way to kind of like integrate that into the future gameplay of Dead by Daylight a bit more, because they really still are a side thing that could just be completely ignored. But in most games, kind of just like don't really play a factor. So yeah, interesting.